How are you?
Glad you made it on time.
What?
It was a lesser known.
Get over it.
I was Betty from Boston. And I didn't leave. I'm like, hi, I'm Betty from Boston.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and open up public comment, open public comment. The time is 6:30. Views expressed by individuals during public comment do not necessarily reflect the views of the city of Fremont and have not been verified for accuracy by the city. As a reminder, city council and staff are not permitted to respond to comments or questions during the public comment period in accordance with Fremont Municipal Code Section 2-103. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person and shall not contain topics included on this evening's agenda. So if you are here and would like to speak, you can come in and sign in up here. There's also comment cards over on the back table. You can also submit. So. Time is 6:45 for those that have just come in. We are in public comment till 7 o'clock. Any member of the public can speak on any item that's not on the agenda for up to 3 minutes. If you would like to speak, you can come up here, please, and sign in. There's also comment cards on the back table that you can fill out.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I wanted to make a request of the council. My recollection was that when the Port Authority was approved, that was to be a self-operating, self-governing, self-funding operation. My question really is, we haven't had a status report of late specifically about the acquisition of property associated with the Port Authority as it's beginning to grow. It's my understanding from looking at assessor records that actually JDFC has made several land purchases out there relative to positioning for the Port Authority, perhaps some $20 million worth of land purchases. So my question to the council is, we give taxpayer funding annually as a part of the budget to JDFC. I'm curious as to whether or not the city's money is being used to purchase land relative to the Port Authority, which I thought was to be self-sustaining. You may all have the answers to those questions as the Port Authority gets implemented, but my understanding that they were in a position to do financing and bonding and grants themselves. So I'm curious about the JDFC's involvement in land purchases and whether or not those purchases in any way, shape, or form reflect the use of taxpayer funds for the city of Fremont in doing so. Because my understanding was that was not to be the case. The Port Authority was to run for itself. So if you have answers to that, that would be great. If that could be a study item at some point on the council's agenda, or if not, you could do some investigation about that and put something on in the future and invite representatives from JDFC or the Port Authority to perhaps explain some of that. I tried to do a review of the JDFC financial statements to see where they would have that kind of funding to make purchases like that. I couldn't find financial statements on record. There may be some, but I didn't locate them before coming tonight. So I'd be interested in understanding how that all works currently. I hope you have an interest in that as well. As the Port Authority is gearing up, it sounds like they're making some movement in that regard to get infrastructure in place. So it would just be good for the public to understand how that works. Thank you.
All right, the time is 7 o'clock. We'll close public comment. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and open up the regular city council meeting and call it to order. Again, the time is 7 o'clock. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Eight council members are present, Mayor.
Okay, next we have mayor's comments, and I'll come to the front to do our August service awards. Right, this evening we have 7 individuals that we're gonna honor for their length of service within the city of Fremont. First, we have James Dial, 10 years of service. James has been with the Department of Utilities since 2014 as a senior electrical technician. We have John Gibney, 10 years of service. John has been with the Department of Utilities since 2014 as a power plant mechanic 1. And in 2017, he was promoted to power plant mechanic 2. Ethan Palmer, 5 years of service. Ethan has been with the Department of Utilities since 2019, where he started as a power plant operator 1, and then he was promoted to power plant operator 2 in 2022. Joseph Bauer, 25 years of service. Joseph's been with the city of Fremont as a police officer since 1999. Appreciate Joseph. I believe with us is Troy Taylor, 20 years of service. Is Troy here? Troy's been with the Department of Utilities since 2004 as a fuel handler. Thank Troy for his 20 years of service. James Baser, 5 years of service. James has been with the city of Fremont starting as a firefighter EMT since 2019. And in January of 2023, James transitioned into a firefighter paramedic. I believe James here, would you come up and receive your service award? Let's give him a round of applause. Then finally, we have Zachary Toole, 5 years of service. Zachary has been with the city of Fremont as a firefighter EMT since 2019. I believe Zach was here. There's 7 individuals, all with 5 or plus more years of service, one with 25, one with 20. And so we just thank them for their efforts for the city. We can't do it without our great staff and employees, so we appreciate your loyalty to Fremont. So let's give these 7 individuals. All right, we will go ahead and move on to item 1, which is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the August 27th, 2024 regular meeting. Councilman Von Baron.
I would move to adopt the agenda. I would ask that item 29 be moved either ahead or behind the public hearings, just in respect to those who might be here to speak on it.
So is that a motion to amend the agenda?
That would be a motion to amend.
Okay. Councilwoman Ganem.
I would second that amendment.
Okay, so the motion would be to move item 29 right after public hearings. Is that correct? Okay, so that's been a motion and seconded to amend the agenda. Is there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, I take a motion to amend. Councilman Vaughn?
So moved.
Oh, sorry, we already had a motion in a second, my fault. We got to vote on it, so please vote.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, now take a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Horner,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to public hearings is ordinance 5694 of annexation of property at the southwest corner of South Downing Street and Highway 77 bypass. We'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request to annex the property. It has been known previously as the Ricks property. The developers of the Hills Farm Lake Development have purchased that property. They wish to annex it, and at some point in the future, I anticipate they would be bringing a proposal forward for some sort of a mixed-use development. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on this item? Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If not, I take a motion. This would be to introduce and hold first reading of this annexation. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion, introduce and hold first reading of ordinance 5694.
Councilwoman Ganem.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
First reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition property located in the northwest quarter of section 36 and the southwest quarter of section 25, all in township 17 north, range 8 east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, and generally located at the southwest corner of Highway 77 South Bypass and the South Downing Street, extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on first reading.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3 is resolution 2024-198 for request to expand the non-standard use at 2420 East 23rd Street.
Good evening, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request by the Sid Dillon Group to add another canopy. It'll be back behind the Sid Dillon Cadillac property, toward the rear of the property, in the general vicinity of the area that is being annexed, and we'll have second reading on that later in the agenda. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on this item? Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing. Is anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I'd take a motion in this regarding this item. Councilwoman Ganem.
I would move resolution of the City Council of Fremont to approve a conditional use permit to expand a non-standard use at 2420 East 23rd Street.
Councilwoman Lathrop. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now moving on to item 29 is the council member Von Baron item, the discussion regarding the Spectrum service disruptions. Councilman Von Baron, you can open it.
Thank you. The reason I asked for this is I believe a couple of years ago, a formal resolution was brought regarding the same general content, service interruptions. And personally, I've not been impacted, so I have no skin in this game, but there has been enough discussion, there have been enough questions that I think it merits at least asking and giving both the public and Spectrum the opportunity to comment on. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter on social media about it, and it seems like it's been going on from some time, maybe increasing a little bit, but the bottom line is there's a lot being said and very little being understood. And this is just seems like a good opportunity to open that topic and address it. I've talked to Dayton Murdy a couple of times and asked that they come, and at least I think probably the easiest way to handle this might be to ask Dayton and whoever he cares to bring to address this from Spectrum standpoint. Then maybe allow the public to go ahead and comment, and there might be some closing comments and questions from council as we go.
The Spectrum want to come, go ahead and come up. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Fremont City Council. My name is Dayton Murdy, and I am the Senior Manager of State Government Affairs at Charter Communications, locally known as Spectrum. With me today is Tyler Olson, our Field Operations AVP who covers Nebraska. Charter is a leading broadband connectivity company and cable operator providing superior high-speed internet, voice, video, and mobile services under the brand name Spectrum to more than 32 million customers across 41 states. In Nebraska, our 270 local employees empowers us to serve approximately 156,000 customers in 91 communities. In 2023, we paid over $20 million in taxes and fees to the state and local governments, and we invested over $38 million of private capital to expand our network to reach an additional 2,000 homes and small businesses right here in Nebraska. We're driving innovation and growing economies from coast to coast and in communities big and small. Charter has invested more than $50 billion in infrastructure and technology nationally over the last 6 years as part of our long-term commitment to expanding broadband access across urban, suburban, and rural areas to connect more Americans. Charter's multi-year, multi-billion-dollar rural construction initiative will add an additional 100,000 miles of fiber optic network infrastructure to deliver symmetrical and multi-gigabit speed internet access to approximately 1.75 million homes and small businesses across the country. With our nationwide pricing, we're doing our part to help ensure high-speed internet remains within reach for every family in America, regardless of income. Charter is a leader in delivering life-changing high-speed internet service to low-income families, having helped millions of low-income households and seniors get and stay connected to the internet. Unfortunately, as you know, we have seen a number of recent outages here in Fremont. Over the last few months, we have proudly served your community for many years, but having existing facilities buried underground as overbuilders and other excavators continue to dig up the rights of way across Nebraska, there have been several incidents where third-party excavators have damaged our fiber, leading to loss of service, particularly here in Fremont. We are doing everything in our power to mitigate these outages and repair services quickly. However, there have been circumstances where even our best efforts have left our customers without service for hours on end. No one is more upset with these circumstances than our team at Spectrum. Now, there is a system in place to help prevent damage to underground facilities like our fiber. You may have heard of it. It's called the Nebraska One Call or 811. But sometimes folks don't follow the system, and sometimes fiber cuts happen even when all the rules are followed. But I want you to know that we're always trying to follow the one call rules, and each of these outages resulted from a third party cutting our underground fiber, not from some problem with our network. Recent outages include on July 17th, we had a fiber outage when USIC mislocated our fiber for a contractor called Bear, who was installing a conduit bundle for optics in the 7300 block of North 70th Street in Lincoln. This led to the contractor damaging 2 different sections of our network, and repair required multiple excavations ranging from 10 to 20 feet deep. Services were down from 12:07 p.m. to 7:45 p.m. and all 6,044 of our customers in Fremont were impacted. On August 9th, USIC failed to locate our fiber for the same contractor on the same project for optics on Highway 77 just north of the I-80 interstate, resulting in another fiber cut. This cut required excavation from the damaged site back to a splice case and 2,000 feet of temporary fiber to get Fremont back online. Services were down from 2:11 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. and again, all 6,044 customers in the Fremont area were impacted. On August 16th, the entire eastern side of Nebraska lost Spectrum services from 11:33 a.m. to 6:49 p.m. A portion of our redundant network is provided by Zayo Fiber and was scheduled for overnight maintenance, which ordinarily would not cause a problem because the Zayo path is a secondary redundant path for this portion of our network. However, when Zayo completed the maintenance work, they spliced the wrong fibers together. So the Zayo path did not come back online as scheduled. Then a third party damaged the fiber on our primary path to the eastern half of Nebraska in Dix, Nebraska, and that cut took down our primary network, leaving nearly half of the state without internet service for some time. All of these incidents are now resolved. The damaged fibers repaired with short-term fixes, and the network is performing normally. However, to install permanent fixes for these damage incidents, we wanted to let you know that we will soon be doing overnight maintenance on September 12th to install permanent fixes for these damaged areas. So there will be an additional outage in Fremont from midnight to 3 a.m. on September 12th. We understand the frustration of the council and residents. We are frustrated as well. We will continue to always do our best to address any issues quickly and effectively. Anyone on the council can feel free to contact me directly with any issues that you or your constituents have, and I will be happy to personally assist. We value you as partners and as customers. Thank you for your time. Tyler and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Councilman Vaughn.
So one of the basic tenets of problem solving is a tool called root cause analysis. And that's probably the most simplest one you could think of. And it consists of things like containment actions, which sounds like you've kind of described for us. And then defining what the root cause of the problem was. It sounds like you've kind of defined that too. But one of the most important and often overlooked aspects is what actions are taking place to prevent reoccurrence. What are you doing to better, make sure that locates are correct, or what is the fix to prevent this from happening again?
Unfortunately, we cannot control, other companies. We are doing everything in our power to always follow the one call system and the systems that are in place to ensure that we are not part of the problem. We work with our insurance companies to make sure that the damaging parties are punished when they require reimbursement whenever there is damage to our network. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, we can't control other companies and their contractors. Our network has been in the ground for decades. We're proud to serve the city of Fremont, and we have been for years. And when we have network in the ground and other contractors or companies come in to do that construction, we're not there to oversee that. And we have to respond as promptly as we can and as effectively as we can to repair the damage when it happens. But I hope that kind of
I
gets
would
to your
just
question.
encourage your company to look into how to better prevent these from happening in the future. And you said a key word that kind of piqued my interest, and that was reimbursement. Is there any talk of reimbursing customers that were without service for a long period of time, several times in a row?
I'll have to take that back to the company and follow up with an answer for you. At the end of the day, what I was referring to was when another contractor comes in and damages our network. Because your question was about preventing this from happening in the future. But regarding the situation with customers, I'll follow up and get back to you.
I think that would go a long way in soothing some of the anger and frustration. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilman Von Baron.
Dayton, if the customer has a question or a concern regarding an outage or whatever, what's the vehicle that they use to contact Spectrum?
Yeah, we have various different customer service lines and lines of contact that can be found online. You can contact us online or via email or over the phone. If you have residents that are contacting you directly as city council members, I would encourage you to reach out to me, and I can do my best to assist that the residents or constituents of you all have their questions answered or concerns addressed.
So are those recorded, tracked, quantified? Do you quantify those over time?
Yes, yeah.
Both written and phone?
Yeah, written are ECAF, and we have tracking numbers for electronic contacts.
Okay. The reason I was asking, is there a state requirement to report those for carriers? For basic numbers, basic concerns, is there a statewide metric?
So we are not regulated at the state level because we're not an eligible telecommunications company. We are a cable operator, and so we report on local levels to some communities across the country. Most of our reporting goes to the FCC, and so yeah, that's the answer to that. It's mostly to the FCC.
In the day of customer reviews, that's kind of that was the reason for my question. So customers from individual services have no real way of comparing metrics of service, numbers of complaints with any company, not just Spectrum.
Take that back to,
I'm sorry.
I said, I'll take that, I'll take that observation back.
Well,
to
that
the
was a
company.
question. You know, I didn't know if there was a way for customers. I'm assuming
Well,
the
there's-
answer is no to that.
I mean, there's all kinds of studies out there, Measuring Broadband America is one that the FCC conducts that deals with the reliability of the service. Are we meeting the speeds that we advertise? And we often score very well on the Measuring Broadband that the FCC does. When it comes to specifically dealing with complaints, there's not a database that's managed statewide that you can compare the number of customer complaints for various companies in the fashion that you're discussing. But like I said, there are a number of different studies that deal with the reliability of networks and scoring that those companies based on their networks.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions from the council at this time? Councilwoman Lathrop.
Do we have your contact information? Because you've said multiple times to contact you directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I send out emails to all of our local franchise authorities whenever there's a change in our cable network. So I would be the city administrator or the city info line, whichever one is on file based on our franchise agreement. We'll get periodic updates from me. They have my contact information. And then I've been conversing with the council member. I'm happy to provide that to the city administrator to be dispersed amongst the council members. But yeah, I'm easily accessible.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Now, is there anybody here to speak on this item?
B. Ray, 1445 North Irving Street, Fremont. Well, I've been out all those outages. And as far as reimbursement goes, if you don't call them, they don't give you credit. Because I asked them the last time about it and they said, well, yeah, we will if you have called in. So I think that especially if it's that widespread, they should just automatically give all their customers some credit back. And I can tell you, it don't amount to much. It's like the long one was like $4 and something, but you're out. So I found it interesting though, in the UDC section 3-1112, local office hours and telephone availability. And I don't know, maybe you've done away with that. But it says in order to facilitate the needs of local customers, a cable operator shall maintain a customer service office which is easily accessible to customers. The customer service office should have an adequate and knowledgeable staff in order to handle the vast majority of customer service. And they used to have one here, but they've closed it. So I don't know where you have to go, but I would say they should have kept it in Fremont. So I used to go up there once in a while. They'd raise my bill $10-12 and I'd go up there and argue with them every year and it'd go down about 9 or 10. So I didn't have to pay so much. And I don't know why they closed it, but according to the way I read this, they have a toll-free number or a local number you can call, but there's no office anymore where you can actually physically go in and talk to them. And it is pretty hard to get a hold of them sometimes.
Red Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I want to thank the council for putting this on the agenda tonight for discussion. And I want to thank Spectrum for being here to give some indication as to what's been transpiring over the last couple of months, because there have been a number of major outages, as they pointed out, and I'm thankful they gave all the detail associated with that. Having come from the world of telecommunications, I'm well aware with cable cuts. Correctly, Public Service Commission controls those. And when the telephone company ended up being at fault, they were quite punitive when cable cuts occurred. The fact that the PUC doesn't control cable companies doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some sort of accountability in that regard. And I'm sensitive to the fact that other parties are doing the locate and that contractors are not necessarily digging in the right place and they violate the locate. My question to Spectrum would be, who's always doing the locate? Do you use third-party locates or do you locate yourself? If you locate yourself, you're responsible. If you're hiring a third party, then they're responsible to the extent that they located it properly. If the contractor violated that location and cut it anyway, then it's on the contractor. But I did hear him say that reimbursement comes to Spectrum, but I agree with what's been said as to, yeah, but what's going to go to the parties that were effectively injured in this regard? And it isn't just residents, cable TV customers. Spectrum is a full service operator now, and they offer cable, internet, and telephone service. I kind of chuckled to myself when one of the responses was, well, if you have a cut, you can, in essence, use the internet to contact us. No, you can't. And if you have their phone service, no, you can't. And if you can't go to a local office, you really can't get a hold of them unless you can go to somebody else that doesn't have that service and make your complaint. That seems a bit problematic with regards to that. I am thankful that they have the 800 number service and that they're efficient in isolating that it's a total cable outage for your area and giving you an estimated time of recovery. But for a residential customer, that's an inconvenience in many respects. But for a business customer, that's not just an inconvenience. That's lost revenue, lost operations. Basically, you might be down all day long because you're dependent on not just cable, quote, TV, but internet and telephone service for operation of your business. That's pretty major, and that's worth more than $4 worth of recovery, it seems to me, with those kind of outages. This all started back in 2017 when the original franchise for Charter and Time Warner was put into place. It had a 10-year life, 5-year automatic extension, and it was reviewed in 2019, and I was on council at the time. Similar problems existed at the time. A lot of outages, customers were concerned, and so they wanted an opportunity to speak. Time Warner came, just like Spectrum came, and explained the circumstances. Much of it was the same. Sometimes it was infrastructure, old infrastructure. Sometimes it was cable cuts, et cetera. And they had explanations for those kinds of things. And I think they've been obviously trying to improve their network. And I applaud them for doing so. At the same token, their franchise agreement requires certain things to be made available to you all if you want and desire to see them. We did at the time, back in 2019, establish a review group that wanted to know exactly how many complaints are you receiving. One of the problems that we had was the only complaints that were recorded were written. It sounded like tonight that maybe digital complaints are also recorded. That wasn't the case back in 2019. We were not able to get counts off of digital call-ins from an 800 number. That wasn't something that they had a record of, at least that we could locate at the time, just written. People typically don't write, they call. So I'm hopeful that you would have statistical information that you could get from the company if you're so interested as to how many complaints did they get. When you have a total outage and it's the entire city of Fremont, I'm sure not everybody called. So the important part there is the entire city was out. But I do encourage you to take a look perhaps at that original franchise agreement. There are plenty of things in that agreement that set forth the construction standards, the requirements, the toll-free numbers that are necessary for call-in. I found it interesting that the city actually has another ordinance that controls whether or not you have a local office if you're providing phone cable service. They are. So that's an interesting dilemma for the council since it's in city code. There's an obligation in the franchise agreement for reports as well as other kinds of things. So again, I'm thankful that you brought this up tonight. I'm thankful that we got a chance to hear who was essentially responsible, but I do think that some sort of reparations might be in order for the public. I don't know what you do about for the businesses that really were harmed, but I encourage you to look into it. Thank you.
Sue King, 1350 North Pebble. I too had the outage, 3 different ones for 7 hours. I did call the third outage about a reimbursement. I got $1.73 and $1.51. And she said it was because it was 2 hours, then another 2 hour span, and then another 2 hour span. I got a message that said if I was out for 4 hours, I would get a reimbursement. Then I got a message that I wasn't affected long enough. I think 7 hours is long enough. So I just wanted you to know that I did get a reimbursement of $3 and something.
Or Bushy, 2037 East First, excuse me. First of all, I need to clarify, I do not have internet. Probably never will. I'm old school. But at any rate, I do have friends, I have neighbors. I see things on social media. I do have something that can address the reimbursement. One of my friends told me that in May, their bill was 182 a month. In June, it went to 208. They were without power, whatever, for 15 and a half hours in this 2-month period. I went through and figured it out. They were reimbursed $5.51. Okay, if you deduct what it actually was, because I even went to figure the hours and the minutes, that would have been $4.17. But they did give them $5.51, which allowed them $1.34 for 15 and a half hours of no service. My concern, some of my neighbors are old, their health is poor. Some of them need to have that phone service, and that's their only way of communication. So I'm speaking for other people that don't feel like they can come up and say it. But again, that's all I have to say. And I think the reimbursement could be a little bit better because at $1.34, that's not even 10 cents an hour for reimbursement. But thank you for listening.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, any additional comments from council on this? Councilmember Von Baron.
Dayton, I wonder if you would address that. Did I understand correctly that state statute requires an office in the community of operation?
What was referenced was the
I'm sorry,
local county or city ordinance.
city ordinance.
And, this would have been before I started with the company, but anytime we have a store closure, we converse with the city, and so I can pull up the records of the letters that would have been sent out in regards to the store closure and any kind of conversations that transpired therein, but I don't have personal knowledge on that, so I'll have to get that and provide context and information to the council.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing that, that'd be
Yeah,
an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, if there are none, this is just a discussion item, so we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff? Councilmember Von Baron.
I'd just like to make a comment on item number 16, please.
Okay. Any items from the public to be removed?
Brad Yeager, 2318 East Fifth Street. I'd like to have items 14 and 15 removed for discussion.
There are no other items. I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4 through 13, 17 through 21. Councilman Vaughn.
So moved.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 14 is resolution 2024-203, purchasing, authorizing the purchase of two 2017 Cat 12M3 motor graders for the street department. Staff report from Jeff Shanahan.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. The street department had 5 motor graders or road maintainers that were beyond repair. They were outdated. They were 2000 and older type machines. We need to have reliable equipment when it comes to snow removal and road maintenance. So the fleet manager, Ryan Palmer, went out and started looking for some used motor graders. He found 2 of them, 2017 motor graders, and then we will auction off the other 5 through the big iron auction process. So these are used, but they're in very good condition.
Any questions for staff on this? Thank you. Comment from the public?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I only pulled this as an example, not because I don't believe the city needs to replace its road graders and snow removal equipment. That wasn't my issue. My biggest concern is, and this is just one of those that's a fairly significant item, it's a purchase item for a lot of money. There are many on this agenda as well. There are many on all of your other agendas as well. Spending taxpayer money, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more at times in the consent agenda. I don't believe that that's the appropriate place for items that are not insignificant. If they're significant amounts of money at a minimum, they belong on regular agenda so that they could be discussed and the public would be well aware. My understanding of the Open Meetings Act is the public is not supposed to have to read your packet material. So there's no way in knowing from this resolution item how much you're spending. But quite honestly, it's a lot of money on this item as it is on other items. I believe your agendas should be more specific with regards to the amount of spending. And if it's significant spending at a minimum, it belongs on regular agenda and not here. I know in the past, there was a lot of discussion when I was on council whether or not any and all items that spent taxpayer money belonged on regular agenda. I encourage you to think about that, but certainly think about it with regards to major expenditures. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this item? Okay. Any comments from council? If they're on it, I would take a motion. Councilman Vaughn,
Motion to approve.
Councilman Sukram,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 15 is resolution 2024-204, authorizing the city council meetings to be held at the library community room. Have any staff report on this item?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item would be to hold city council meetings at the library during the period of, there's an item later on the agenda discussing this area and bringing the bathrooms up here in the room into ADA compliance. And so this item would be in anticipation of that.
Okay. Questions for our staff? Okay. Comment from the public?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. My only comment in this regard, now that you're moving over to the library for several months, is, and it is noted in the staff report that in fact provisions are going to be made or will be made to ensure that the live stream of the meetings will continue during those months. My encouragement for you this evening is that you would add that last line of the staff report into your resolution in the second whereas statement to officially notify IT, and the public that such facility will be made available for those months when we're not in council chambers. I've long contended that the staff report is informative. Your resolution needs to state what it is you're actually approving. I think it would be appropriate for you to add that last sentence into that whereas statement to make sure you've codified that instruction to the IT department to make that happen. I encourage you in the strongest way to please do so. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this item from the public? Okay. Comments from council on this? Councilman Jensen.
If there are no further comments, I'll make the resolution to approve the resolution. No, I gotta find the number. 2024-204.
Councilman Horner,
I'll say it.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 16 is resolution 2024-206, authorizing staff to sign the QBE medical insurance stop loss proposal for the 2023-2024 plan year. We'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, Jody Sanders, City Administrator, stepping in for Jennifer McDuffie, who's not with us this evening. This is basically a renewal on our stop loss insurance or reinsurance for our health insurance coverage. We are going with the company that was not the lowest bid. However, there is a cost to changing from one carrier to the other. And there's the company that we're with already has our loss experience, has our records, all of those kinds of things. And as you're, the insurance market is not a good place to be playing day trader and going after the lowest premium every year, because then the next time you go out for bids, you won't get let's go to bid is kind of the mindset there. So this is helping us if we have those extra large claims that go beyond what our fund is normally able to handle. I take any questions.
Thank you for that report. Questions for staff on this? Councilman Von Barron.
No real question. The only reason I asked to pull it, I guess it was a similar point to what Brad made a little bit ago. Just look back in the last 30 days, we have passed $2 million worth of expenditures on the consent agenda. I don't quarrel with any of them. I don't quarrel with the motive. I think they're probably reasonable as stated, but a few years ago, we had an incident where the state auditor couldn't find about $350,000. And I'm not sure where the balance is, but some of the items are very big. This is a big one, obviously. I'm not arguing that it's needed, but I think it's an example of the size of expenditures that we're just passing automatically in one sweeping motion. And I think we need to give that some thought, especially again, in the last 30 days, we have spent $2 million just on consent agenda, just basically on one sweeping vote. Know that that's a problem, but it's, I think it's just a good reminder. Thank you.
Councilman Jensen.
I guess I don't know how the other rest of council feel, but I feel, yes, we have spent $2 million. We spend a lot of money every week on every meeting on the consent agenda. Almost all of it is budgeted items. I think it's not budgeted. It isn't on the consent agenda. It's all budgeted items. We passed the budget. I mean, how many times do we have to look at this over and over? And people that really want to look at it can find it. It's there.
Okay, any other comments from the council?
I did want to comment as well. We do take all of those things into consideration. What Mr. Jensen talked about, the fact that these are budgeted items, they're within the parameters of what we have budgeted.
We do think about those things as we're deciding what goes on the consent agenda, what items we feel would warrant discussion among. And in addition, we have a meeting with the mayor and the council president before the agenda is posted and go over what we put in the consent agenda, what we put in the regular agenda. So I would like you to know that it's not just a capricious, I'll just throw it and see what sticks. We do think about those things as we go through that process.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. Jody, just so I kind of understand, this is almost like an umbrella policy, correct?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, I mean, it's going to cover us beyond any of our normal
Correct.
losses. Okay. And it is budgeted.
Yes.
So really what it's on the consent agenda for, is it more because you are needing to notify us that you're going to be signing a contract, or you're going to be approving the carrier?
Well, we can't sign a contract. All contracts have to be signed by the mayor in order for
Okay.
them to be, and the mayor doesn't have the authority to sign contracts.
Right. But that's what I mean, is that we're not approving the amount. The amount's been budgeted. What we're approving is the contract. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I would take a motion. Councilman Horner.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve resolution 2024-206.
Councilman Jensen.
And I will second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to unfinished business, ordinance 5681 for a change of zone from R rural to SR suburban residential for property located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive. This would be for second reading.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Jam, Planning Director. This item and the next item address the donut hole. It is associated with a final plat that was approved, but annexes and changes the zoning on that entire area. The developer has been very gracious to agree to the annexation and changing of zone of that area. Some recent changes in state statute made that possible so that the taxes are not going to be increased horrendously just for adding it into the city limits. So it makes planning much more efficient for the future. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? This is second reading. Thank you. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. This would be second reading. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make the motion to hold a second reading of ordinance 5681.
Councilman Jensen.
And I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending ordinance number 5427 as it pertains to the zoning map to rezone the property located in the southwest quarter of section 18, township 17, north, range 9, east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, and generally located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive, Dodge County, Nebraska, from R rural to SR suburban residential, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on second reading.
Item 23 is ordinance 5682 for annexation of property located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive. Staff gave the report on this associated with a change of zone. Are there any questions from the council on this item? Okay, anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, I would take a motion in regards to ordinance 5682. Councilwoman Ganem.
I move we hold second reading of ordinance 5682.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition properly located in the southwest quarter of section 18, township 17, north range 9, east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, and generally located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive, westward to 12th Street, extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on second reading.
Item 24 is ordinance 5688 for the annexation of property located at 2420 East 23rd Street. And this would also be for second reading.
Good evening, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is the second reading for the annexation for the property that's at the back of the Sid Dillon Cadillac property. It's immediately behind the Rough House property. It's already zoned commercially. For some reason, this was not annexed back at the point when they changed the zone on that area, and we're just cleaning it up right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Thank you. Anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'd take a motion to hold second reading. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make a motion to hold second reading of ordinance 5688.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition property composed of a parcel of land located in the southeast quarter of section 12, being parts of lots D and E of Howard Williams et al. Re-subdivision of the south half southeast quarter of section 12 and the north half northeast quarter of section 13, all in township 17, north range 8, east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on second reading.
Moving on to item 25 is ordinance 5689 for the approval of the utility salary ordinance. This would be for second reading. There is a request to suspend rules and move to final reading. We'll have a staff report.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. This is the item Jennifer McDuffie, HR Director, presented last meeting. The union contract called for a 3% cost of living increase for this year. And the same 3% is being applied to the non-bargaining unit employees within the Department of Utilities. Take any questions?
Questions for staff? Councilman Horner?
Jeff, can you remind us, was this a budgeted?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody here to speak on this item? I would take a motion. This would be to hold second reading of the utility salary ordinance. Councilman Vaughn.
So moved.
Councilman Horner.
Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Have second reading.
An ordinance to the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5671 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinance in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing for an effective date on second reading.
Councilman Vaughn.
Make a motion to suspend rules and move to final reading.
Councilman Jensen.
I will second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5671 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote for the utility salary ordinance.
Ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
Item 26 is ordinance 5690 for approval of the government salary ordinance. This again would be for second reading. Consider request to suspend rules and move to final reading. We'll have a staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jody Sanders, City Administrator for Jennifer McDuffie. As the mayor mentioned, this is the second reading of the ordinance. We are requesting the suspension of the rules and move it to final reading. That is because the all three of the union contracts call for the increase to go into effect in the pay period that includes October 1st. And in order to get that accomplished, we would need to skip that third reading to make sure that we have adequate time. The pay period that includes October 1st actually starts already September 22nd. So that's why we're asking for that. And again, the same as the utility, the non-union classifications will be moved at the same percentage increase. And all of that was
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, take a motion to hold second reading. Councilman Vaughn.
So moved.
Councilman Jensen.
Second.
Cast your votes to hold second reading.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Go ahead.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5672 and all other ordinances, parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on second reading.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to request to suspend the rules and move ordinance 5690 to the third and final reading.
Councilman Vaughn.
And I was second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5672 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote for ordinance 5690, the government salary ordinance.
Ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
All right, new business, item 27 is resolution 2024-205 awarding a contract for the an advanced metering infrastructure AMI system to Open Access Technology International, Inc.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility Manager. We currently have a meter reading system that requires, it has a radio in a truck, and the truck gets driven around town and it collects the data from the meters. And that's all we get, is we just get the meter readings. How many pulses did it go up over the period of time? That system is outdated. Some of the radios that we have, they're towards end of life and they're going to need to be replaced. So what we did is we put together a team of our staff to look into what we could do to move the system forward. And so we, Al Casper, Nate Royk, and Dion Menkeen from Transmission and Distribution on electrical, they worked on it. Lottie Mitchell, Customer Service. Keith Contour, Water and Sewer Department. Gary Ogden, the Natural Gas Department, and Chris Gunderson, our Information and Technology Manager. All those folks worked together. They developed a request for proposals, and we sent it out to manufacturers and vendors that provide these types of services. What we wanted was something to where we could get people's information on demand, which without having to drive around town to get the information. What this system will allow us to do is if a customer comes in, this is prime time of year, kids are moving into apartments from colleges. So what we have to do is every time a person comes in to sign up for utilities, we have to go read the meter to do a transfer so we can transfer from the landlord to the renter. Well, that takes one of our gas service workers time to go out and do that. Then when that student leaves college, we have to go read it again. When a customer doesn't pay their bills, we have to send an employee out to the house to pull the meter. Then when they come in to pay their bill, we have to send another employee out to the house to put the meter back in. You're all familiar with what we had happen in Omaha with the storms. And I imagine a lot of people went and looked at the maps and saw the outage map that OPPD had on their websites. This will allow us to do that too. It'll help us in outage planning. We'll be able to see, or not outage planning, but outage response. We'll be able to see where people are out before they even give us a call, because as soon as these electric meters go dead, they're going to trigger an alarm and we're going to know that circuit is out of service. So this has many advantages. It's going to allow the folks that are currently they're spending 100 to 120 man hours a month going out doing these transfer orders, shut-offs, meter reads and that. This will allow them to do their service work on the gas system or the electric system. So this system will provide us with about 8,000 electric meters that will be installed in calendar year 25 or in fiscal year 25, I'm sorry. And there's 15,000 meters in our system, but what those 8,000 meters will do is they will allow those meters to talk to another radio, and then the radio talk to our substation or a cell service and send the information back into our network so that we can have all this information available to us. Over time, we'll change the rest of those meters out. They're disconnecting type of meters. So if I don't pay my bill, I'll get a notice. If I don't come in and pay it within the notice time, customer service will hit a button. It'll just shut my power off. When I come to pay my bill, customer service can hit the button and it'll come back on. So it's a complicated system. It does a lot of communication. All the existing, we call them ERTs, all the existing ERTs will communicate with these electric meters. Over time, we plan on changing all those out because we know they're getting towards end of life. But typically those meters and ERTs are part of our regular budget items where we change out so many per year. So those will just get incorporated over time. As they go bad, we'll replace them with this new style.
Councilman Horner.
Just one quick question, Jeff. As I listen to how this thing works, my only thought is, are there some pretty solid security controls on these devices?
Yes, that's why we brought Chris Gunderson, our information technology director, into the team that reviewed this. And they had extensive talks about communication and safety protocols.
Councilman Jensen.
Just the first round of meters that are coming in, I understand it's not going to be the all city all at once, but is this going to be scattered throughout the city? Is it going to be maybe in this new development here and this new development there, or where are these new meters going exactly?
Right. The vendor's going to come in and they do what they call like a propagation study or whatever, where they look at all the radio signals and will strategically place these meters around the system to provide the minimum network connectivity. As we start growing it out, we'll add more and more meters to it to make it more redundant. But we feel that this 8,000 meters that we put in will make our system more than reliable enough for us to get all the information we need.
Councilman Vaughn.
I believe as it works today, when someone's utilities are severed for lack of payment, there's a reconnection fee, and I forget the amount. I'm not sure what it is. Will that fee be waived now that it's a push of a button kind of a scenario?
I doubt that we'll waive it, but we may reduce it some because we're not having to send a person out to the site. We want to encourage people though to pay their utilities.
Thank you.
Councilman Von Baron.
Jeff, on average residents, how often is the information collected? Is it once a month? Is it?
Right now, it's once a month.
Okay.
On AMI, I can call up my address right now and pull up what my consumption is for the month.
Okay. Second question, with obviously privacy is getting to be a bigger and bigger concern, and with all the smart appliances that are out there, does this system have the capability of collecting data on individual appliances, washing machines, stoves, television? Is there any capability there?
No, this would be, this is basically a radio network, and the ERTs, like on your gas meter, it's got a radio frequency. It's going to talk to the electric meter. Then the electric meter is going to talk to the radio repeater. And then the radio repeater is going to talk to the substation or the master station, then get back to our network. But these are not, these are proprietary bands that they're going to communicate on.
Okay. Sounds like a good idea.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
Does this system make it harder for those people who were disconnected and who might try to cheat the system with their meter? Because wasn't there a situation where maybe they could get their meter going again and have their electricity back on? Does this make it harder to do so?
No, I don't, I mean, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but what these electric meters have in them is a little disconnect switch inside that basically disconnects the line from the load. If you don't pay your utility bill, we're gonna hit the button, it's gonna flip over that switch and it's gonna open the circuit. If somebody goes and cuts our tamper tag that's on the meter, you know, we're gonna, if that power goes back on when we've turned it off, which I don't know how it could unless they went out and jumped it or something. But, you know, when we pull a meter, they don't have a meter there to put in. We pull it out, we hold it, and then we put one in when we get done. But, so I'm not sure on that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Anybody here to speak on this?
Anthony Hansen, 1817 North Deer Run. In my line of work, capital projects have paybacks. This is $1 million expense with a reoccurring payment of $78,000 a year. It was stated roughly 100 to 120 man hours a month will be saved, but we're offsetting it with the reconnection fee. So we're losing that. Normal ROIs are roughly 5 years to pay back $1 million. So that's going to be $278,000 a year in order to make that justifiable. Substantial in the resolution, it said substantial labor cost savings. That's the numbers that we got. Substantial labor cost savings. So that's not quantifiable. Needs to be justified. I understand that it was in our capital budget, but this is, I don't see where the cost savings are, what the justification of this is. Also, this is going to cost to install all these meters. My understanding is that $1 million is just for the materials. This is 3 meters on what every single residence in the city. There's going to be added costs there as well. 120 hours a month. That's 3/4 of a head count. So are we going to be lowering the number of employees that are going around checking these meters? Also in this resolution, it said that it will be gathering additional information above the minimal needed for billing. What information are you collecting of mine at 1817 North Deer Run? And why do you need that information? Who's in charge of that data? There's nothing secure anymore. So there's going to be a data breach. It's a matter of time. So I do not feel comfortable with this. I do not support it. Thank you.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. Interesting discussion, interesting proposal. What I didn't hear and what you didn't ask, and maybe for the rest of the public, be interesting to know, if you have to make replacements of all 3 types of meters, gas, water, electricity, to be something that's electronic driven, is there a fail safe for that not being burnt out or tripped and a person going without service when they're not at fault? Are there any costs to the residential property or business owner for replacement of these meters and access to any of those meters? Or the shutoffs necessary to maintain and access those meters? I know in my case, my water shutoff is under the city sidewalk, and you can't turn off the water to the house without it if you're replacing the meter. So who sustains those kinds of costs? If you don't have to replace the meter, you're just putting in some sort of electronics on what's existing, that's maybe a different matter. But I wasn't clear on just exactly what this meant. If you're getting a full meter replacement or not, it'd be nice to get that clarified and what access the city might have. But I think mostly from the public's perspective, knowing whether or not they have any cost involved in this whatsoever. Certainly the concerns that were just previously raised would be an issue perhaps for a lot of people. But certainly cost would be an issue that most public would like to know. And with regards to the cost savings and where you would place these and having to make a lot of these calls, I'm assuming that it isn't just college students in and out that create a lot of costs for the city. Rental properties probably do the same, people in and out, and you got to read the meters all the time. So there'll probably be significant savings there in that regard, but for general public and general business, you don't go out and read their meters. You can currently read them. So I'd like to have a little more dialogue from the council about some of those questions. If the city staff could explain some of those things to you so that you can explain them to the citizens of Fremont should you get follow-up calls. I'll be one of those making follow-up calls. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this item?
Gene Schultz, 2306 Gene Drive, Fremont. Just from what I heard, it sounds like this is all done from the meter, like the gas meter outside the house. Did you have to come into the home to do some work, or I didn't hear the answer to that.
Anybody else here to speak on this? Councilman Jensen?
Jeff, I've seen you get up to go to speak to some of these issues as far as cost and how the meters talk to each other. I mean, we don't need a whole tutorial, but please.
Yeah, the cost is no cost to the customer. These are meters that we have in place right now. The existing system will communicate with the electric meters. I guess the downside or whatever it would be for the customer is while we take one meter out and put another meter in, there'll be a loss of service for that few seconds while you're out of power, while we change that meter out. But once the new meter is put in, you'll have your electricity back in your house. Over time, if we have to change water meters out or gas meters out, it's going to be an inconvenience, but it is that way with the current meters. We have to come into your house and change your gas meter. We're going to shut off the gas. We're going to replace the meter. We're going to turn the gas on. We're going to ask to come in your house and make sure there's no leaks, make sure everything is safe before we walk away from the site. Same thing with the water meter. We're going to make sure we got to go in your house to do it. We'll shut the water off at the stop or if you have a valve in your house, we'll shut it off. We'll replace the meter. It's not going to make any difference from that respect. One of the benefits that we don't see is we've got hundreds, if not thousands of meters that are in our system that need maintenance, need replaced, need service. We were just talking today, there's over 7,000 gas meters in our system that are 20 years old. Well, gas meters, they shouldn't be in that long or without calibrations. We need to get on those. Our service guys, we have 3 service guys. They spend 100 to 120 hours plus a month out there doing meter reads. They're not out calibrating meters and checking regulators and doing leak tests. So we're going to gain that work back by putting this in. Plus, we will have some new meters in the system that need to be replaced anyway.
Councilman Horner?
Jeff, real quick, could you speak to the question of what type of data is being collected?
We're only collecting basically on electricity, there might be some parameters. If you're a 3-phase system, we might want to know your 3-phase amps, your voltage, that we could see what's at your location to see if we have an under voltage issue, that our tap changers on our transformers aren't keeping up on a high demand day and the voltage goes low. We'll be able to see what that's like at the end of the line at your house. So we can make adjustments to try to make our power quality better. 3-phase systems, we could look at VARs and those kind of things and power factor.
Is there any kind of personal data or anything like
No.
that that's involved?
No.
Any other comments from the council?
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just say appreciate our utility general manager getting together his department heads to look at this. Obviously, we take everybody's information extremely seriously. When you run a utility, you have to be forward looking and look at modernizing the system. And you know, a utility of our size, we're obviously kind of behind in this way. Most utilities now, this is a standard process. So ultimately, it's to serve the customer at the end better. And so when it comes to reconnection and a quicker service, a better experience in customer service, I mean, that's what this is about, is to serve our customers better. So I appreciate the work that Mr. Shanahan and his team have done. So are there any other comments? Councilman Jensen.
If there's no further discussion, I'll move that we adopt resolution 2024-205.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 28 is the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds update. We have Troy Shaven here.
Thank you. Troy Shaven, city engineer. This is an update on the ARPA funds. Currently, the city has a little over $4.5 million in ARPA funds. The council has designated us to look at stormwater runoff drainage issues as the priority for the ARPA funds. The two previous public work directors / engineers before me had projects identified, had them included in the budget. The idea was they were going to use ARPA funds in combination with potential grant monies to do the projects that were listed in the budget. We found out in July that we did not receive any of those grant monies, so it's going to affect the spending a little bit. We're going to continue to apply for those grant monies, but what it does is a lot of the projects were engineering and construction, and the construction numbers were going to be primarily used with the grant money. They're larger monies. A lot of the construction projects are in the $1 million, $2 million, somewhere in the $4 and $5 million range. And we didn't want to spend all of the ARPA money, all of $4.5 million on one single project without implementing what I have listed as the first ARPA is the Stormwater Master Plan, which is basically going to take a look at all of our existing inlets, outlets, manholes, ditches, pretty much everything that's in our storm sewer system. It's going to tie that down. It's going to create a three-dimensional model with which we can put in hypothetical situations. If Fremont got a 3-inch rain in 15 minutes, it'll give us a three-dimensional model of the city of Fremont and the areas where there's flow slows down or there's potential flooding or issues. That stormwater master plan has in it some of the items that were in the budget, and we wanted to, rather than start on construction of a job, make sure that we had that stormwater master plan far enough along so that we could take a look at each individual construction project, prioritize them based on cost benefit, how many people are going to be affected or benefited, and then make decisions off of that stormwater master plan. So the first item did not change. The stormwater master plan was in the budget. It's going to be the number one item on our plan for ARPA funds. I have kind of an exhibit attached. Please excuse the rudimentary of my art. I did it on paint in about 10 minutes when I realized no one knew what I was talking about without an exhibit. So, but if you look at the exhibit, the Johnson Lake project was one of the jobs. The engineering and the construction was in the $1.3 million range. When we did not get the grant funds, we decided to proceed with just the engineering and then hopefully can receive some grant funds for the construction. But what it does, if you look at your drawing, the existing Rawhide Creek, which is where most of the water leaves Fremont, is in blue. The red is there's a diversion structure that'll take excess flow from the Rawhide Creek and divert it north along the south side of Jack Sutton Drive, east towards Johnson Lake, and then ultimately south and back into the Rawhide Ditch. But when it gets to Johnson Lake, it will divert that flow into a new cell in Johnson Lake, which will provide additional storage. And the ditch also on the south side of Jack Sutton Drive will supply additional ditch and or supply additional storage and take water out of the Rawhide Creek and move it into a different location and provide storage, which should allow more capacity in the Rawhide. The other thing it'll do is it'll levelize or normalize the level in Johnson Lake so that there are times when Johnson Lake is low. This should actually keep it at a more level elevation so that you don't get the high swings up and down. That cell that's going to be constructed will provide additional capacity and additional flow for Johnson Lake that should normalize it and keep it at a more stable level. The third item also it is part of the stormwater master plan, but the Morningside Business Park south of the power plant, there's a plan for a detention cell there. That cell is very large. It'll hold about 40,000 gallons of water. I'm sorry, 40 million gallons of water. 40,000 is not a lot. 40 million gallons of water. When we had the funding source, the idea was to construct that now and get the benefit of it. But when we didn't get the grant money, there's about 300,000 cubic yards of dirt in there. Right now, it's about $10 a yard to haul dirt. So $3 million of that money would have been spent hiring a contractor to take dirt out of the cell and take it somewhere else. One of the issues we have in Fremont, everyone is aware, it's very flat on the utility and the city side. We sometimes have problems getting fill dirt. It's expensive. And so what we're planning on doing is engineering the cell. And I've talked to Jennifer Dam, getting it permitted as a borrow pit site. And what we'll do is we'll utilize it rather than paying somebody $10 a yard to take it away. We will allow our crews to go in and excavate it and use it on projects that we do. That way we don't have to purchase additional dirt and we don't have to pay to haul in additional dirt for our projects. For example, the combined street and parks building, which is just west of Luther Road, south of the power plant. There's fill dirt in there. We could use fill dirt from this site and take it across the road less than 500 feet away, rather than having to pay somebody $10 a yard to haul it in. The final item that we're proposing is storm sewer jetting and clean out. And there are a series of photos that I've also included. And if you look at the first 3 or 4 of them, I'll back up. It was about 2 years ago, the city made the decision to hire 2 additional employees, one on the city side, one on the utility side. And we purchased a jetback truck, and the idea was that that jetback truck was going to jet and clean sanitary sewer and storm sewer. What we're finding out after 2 years is anytime we try to clean out storm sewer with that jetpack truck, it takes, if we were to do an 8-inch sanitary sewer, it takes us about 4 hours to do 300 feet of sanitary sewer, to jet it, vac it, get it out. If we were to do an 8-inch storm sewer, it's taking us for 100 feet of storm sewer, it's taking us maybe 2 full days. The bulk of the storm sewer in Fremont has a lot of sediment in it. I would say most of the storm sewer in Fremont has at least a quarter to a half of the capacity is gone because of silt or roots or debris or something like that. If you look at the pictures, the first, 3 pictures are of what a storm sewer looks like when it's half plugged, 2/3 plugged. The final picture is what it looks like after it's been jetted and cleaned out. You can imagine that if a storm sewer is 2/3 full of debris, it only has 1/3 of capacity for water. That other 2/3, that's debris. That 2/3 that should be water is now not in the sewer anymore. It's outside the sewer, in the gutter, in the street, in somebody's yard. So for every cubic foot of debris that you get out of the storm sewer, you gain, in theory, a cubic foot of storage above ground because that water is now in the sewer and it's not in the street or in somebody's yard. The other benefit is a storm sewer that's clean. The water will run faster through a clean concrete pipe than it will run through a sedimented pipe with a, a rougher coefficient of friction or Manning's, and it'll just leave faster. So that's kind of the gist of what we're getting at. I thought it was appropriate to bring it back just to be transparent and verify that everybody's on board with what we're doing, and that that this is the correct way to go. These monies have to be under contract. The ARPA money has to be under contract by the end of this year. Another reason for doing the engineering is like for the Johnson Lake project, there are water quality testing things that have to be done. The construction probably could not have been under contract by the end of the year. So that's an explanation of where we're at. I'm here to get input from you on what you would like to see. Ultimately, it's your decision, but these are our suggestions as of now. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the council? Councilman Vaughn.
So it sounds like we're looking to outsource some of the jetting of.
Jetting would be 100% outsourced. Our guys just can't keep up. I think if we can get it to a point where they're clean, I think we can maintain. It's just we can't get everything out by ourselves. So what we're doing is we're trying to get everything clean, and then we're going to get into our maintenance program. Yes. One of the companies that we've talked to about potentially doing this, we have one crew of 2 people. They're going to bring in 4 crews of 4 people, and they're going to work for 2 straight years. That's about how long they think it's going to take to get all the storm sewer cleaned out.
That was the bulk of my question, was whether or not we'd be able to maintain after we undertake this endeavor. Thank you.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. Troy, when's the last time we've done something of this magnitude on the entire system?
Not since I've been here. Some of the storm sewer that you see, I don't know that it's been cleaned out in 20 years.
So we've got a lot of deferred maintenance we got to catch up on. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's a true statement.
Thank you.
Councilman Sukram.
Yeah, does this, any of this kind of pertain to the Fifth Street ditch, Claremore? Does this take care of? Because
the jetting does not include the cleaning of the ditches. The master plan has identified or will identify, it'll look at those areas and decide. I know the Fifth Street ditch is part of the master plan that they were looking at doing. Part of that larger, with the grant money, they were actually going to fill that in and put a large scale box culvert in there so that it wouldn't be a ditch anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the master plan will deal with the ditches, and a lot of times it involves cleaning them out, making them wider, larger.
Okay.
Maybe redirecting them to different areas.
And what about places like Dakota Street ditch? The
master plan would look at all that stuff.
Okay.
The ditches are not part of the jetting program, though. That's something that we have our public works department has a schedule of cleaning out ditches. This year's been especially bad because of all the early rain we had. And so we are admittedly struggling to keep up with the grass and the weeds and everything growing in the ditches. We do have a regular maintenance schedule that I would say in past years has worked better than it has this year, just because it was such an early wet season that just everything just took off.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Dinkins.
Troy, I'm not sure if you can answer this, but one of the things in the background says 850,000 for projects, including purchase on future land. I'm not denying the need for the sewer jetting. It's a lot of money. I'm just curious if
and I'm not, maybe we can't use ARPA money for this, but what about like land for the police station? I mean, can it help us with that? And, because I know we're gonna look at possibly bonding some of that. Was that thought of, or maybe we can't use it for that?
I did not look at that because my direction was drainage projects. Whether or not that can be used for police stations. My guess is yes, but I'm not gonna comment on that. I don't know for certain.
Councilwoman Ganem.
I think historically, we kind of directed the ARPA money to be used for storm drainage and flooding, because that seemed to be a major issue in Fremont. And that's certainly the questions I often get happens to do with flooding, water, my sewers backed up. It's a good direction to use this funding, and I think I'll thank you for working on this. I'm sorry we didn't get the grants. Hopefully there'll be a next time around.
We're applying for new grants right now. Angie, who was our grant coordinator, does a really good job of scouring for stuff that we can find and use. So I'm certain we'll get something.
Throughout this process, we've had a lot of great conversations with the county and the NRD and plenty of meetings. The big grant that we were really counting on or looking to was it's a BRIC grant. It's another acronym, but it's a federal grant through FEMA that was over $50 million project. That's what the one in July that we received that we did not get. We are going to get some feedback from that, and then we are planning to reapply. But all these projects in here kind of align with what we're trying to do. And we really, with the ARPA dollars, my goal was, and when we were talked about it, was to go, what gives the most benefit to the community as a whole? And getting all these storm sewers jetted out. The ditches will also be, further on part of the planning. But the relationship that we're building with the county and the NRD and working through all these things really is going to, I think, pay off in the end as we look at and the Joint Water Management Board, which also discusses these things. We can say we're really utilizing these ARPA dollars again for the whole benefit of the whole community. So yeah, I appreciate the work on kind of after the grant, kind of regrouping and getting a plan. So. Is there any other questions or comments from the council? This is an update. Is there any comments from the public in regards to this item?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. Very much appreciate seeing an update to the ARPA program. And actually was thinking about putting that on open public comment the last couple of times, so I'm glad to see it here. I have a few questions and I have some challenges, especially for the council representatives in my ward. And I appreciate Mr. Shaven's explanation of some of this. I'm interested in this drawing that he offered to you with the red drainage path and the blue drainage path. There was no discussion as to whether or not that's a closed or open drainage path. There was some comments about today, Fifth Street is an open drainage path, carries an awful lot of water. And what I heard Troy say is that that might be replaced eventually with a box culvert. My understanding is that's been looked at before, and that box culverts won't move near as much water as that open ditch moves. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I am curious as to if that gets replaced by a box culvert, are the red paths and the blue paths going to be open trench or box culverts all the way to Johnson Lake and all the way out to 275? Because all the capacity is going to be constrained by box culverts. Today, the Fifth Street ditch, when it overflows, and it often does, it overflows and goes down the side streets, in particular Garden City, and it ends up on First Street, et cetera. If you box culvert it, that probably won't happen. But you'll push the water more slowly because it's constrained. And I'm just wondering what the engineering analysis was associated with that. I'm also interested in understanding if you box culvert Fifth Street from Williams, or actually from Claremar to Luther, are you going to have to do anything with all the bridge replacements? Every one of those streets has a bridge. Is that part of the stormwater replacement cost because those bridges won't be cheap. If we're gonna do open ditch on the red line and the blue line, then we're gonna end up with the same problems you currently have on the Fifth Street ditch, the Luther Street side, as to maintaining that and keeping the vegetation out of the ditch if you want the water to flow. So I'm interested in understanding what those proposals really mean to the citizens in the southeast quadrant of Fremont where I live. So I would appreciate my council members looking into that a little greater. And in particular, how that meets and drains at the Luther and Jack Sutton Drive intersection, where typically on heavy rains, there can be 18 inches of water. Now, some of that water won't be there, I guess, if you're box culverting Fifth Street and Luther all the way down to that intersection. I guess it can't get out. So it will be somewhat restricted. But then is it going to go culvert or open ditch down there? Can it move fast enough to keep up? I don't understand those. Those are engineering questions, but I'm hoping you, as representatives of my district, can explain that to the residents in the southeast quadrant of Fremont. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this? Okay, this is not an action item. We'll go ahead and move on to item 30. Motion to authorize the mayor to sign the change order for lift station relocation with Penro Construction.
Troy Shaven, city engineer. At the end of July, the council approved a contract with Penro to relocate a lift station on 23rd, approximately just north of the airport. When we do bid proposals for jobs that involve dewatering, what we do is we allow the contractor an allowance for dewatering. It's a very difficult item to put out for bid. You really have to do a lot of analysis on the groundwater table, on the soil type, stuff like that, in order to get a reliable number. And a lot of times you can't do that until you actually get the ground open. So what we do is we put an allowance in there. And in this case, I put in a number of 25,000. That was based on past jobs and on knowledge of the groundwater table there, and the fact that we had a relatively hot and dry July or June, July, and up until, a few weeks ago, August. That $25,000 was low. They got in and they did some soil analysis. The soils are a little finer than they thought. The groundwater table is higher. They're going to need more pumps, and they're going to have some significant shoring based on the soil type because of potential for collapse. So that $25,000 number is going to be added by 125,000. I know that's a lot of money, but it's not something that would not have been there had we done it at 125,000 at the start. When we bid it, regardless of the contractor that got it, regardless of how they calculated it, the dewatering number would have been that $125,000. It is within our budget for lift station repairs and for sanitary sewer repairs. There's money in the budget for it. So I guess I'm asking for approval to authorize additional funds for dewatering. I can answer any questions you have.
Councilman Sukram.
This isn't actually about the cost going up. They have like a pump way going across that road. Why did they not make it the width of the road? Because you can only get one car through there. I got a question on this. That's why I'm asking.
They have a pump going across the road.
If
So
that-
I know they have the outlet pipe is across, and I know it's a drive over. I
Yes.
think they're actually getting ready to open cut that. They have to open cut part of that street. And I think they're actually getting ready to open cut that so that when they do that, half of the road will still be open.
Right,
they-
because right now it's only one lane to go through there.
To get into the storage facility.
No, yeah, just to get into the, off the road, across the pumpway there we were talking about.
They have to do an open cut, and
Okay.
they had to restrict it down to one lane in
Okay.
order to get that work done.
That's the question that was asked. Did they have to do it that way? So,
Yes, they had to do that.
Okay. and they're gonna open that back up, you're saying?
That should be closed for 2 or 3 days. They've had conversations with the storage owner about using the back entrance, and I can't say he was happy about it, but I think they've explained how it was going.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Anybody here to speak on this item? Any additional comments from the council on this item? Councilman Sukram,
If there's no other questions, I'll make the motion to authorize the change order.
Councilman Jensen,
And I will second.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Sukram, it didn't count your vote. Thank you. Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you.
Item 31 is resolution 2024-202 awarding a contract for the city of Fremont second floor remodel to elevate construction. I'll have staff report. Oh, I do need a motion to receive.
Yeah, this, we're gonna ask you to receive this. We have a change in the actual price from Elevate that includes an alternate. And Travis will hand it out if you approve receiving this.
Councilman Sukram,
Motion to approve.
Councilman Jensen,
Second.
cast your votes to receive the document.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Sir.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
All right. This building was, used to be a bank, purchased in the mid-90s by the City of Fremont Department of Utilities and turned into the municipal building and Department of Utilities building. There was some remodeling done to fill in basically the area there where our offices are. It was an entryway or a stairwell, but largely the building was, not really modified or changed. The bathrooms and everything are still the same. So when we looked at it, we thought, well, we need to get ADA compliant bathrooms. If we do so much of a remodel, you have to do something for ADA compliance too. So that was our main focus, was to look at getting some ADA compliant bathrooms, at least someplace on this floor. Carpeting, paint, ceiling tiles, lighting, those kind of things haven't been changed since the mid-90s. Carpet might have been changed, I think, in the 2000 timeframe, 2010 timeframe, some carpet was changed, but it needs its wear and tear, and those are things that need to be changed. So we reached out to Architectural Innovations to write us a spec to do a refresh in here, to redo the bathrooms, and then to incorporate the AV system and the voting system that was approved in about a year ago. Yeah, that was going to go into this room. So we put all those packages together and sent out bids. We had a pre-construction meeting where 5 or 6 contractors came through, and they were required to come through and do a walkthrough in order to bid. We did open bids last Friday, and Elevate Construction was the low bid. So we were recommending them. When we reviewed the bids, we noticed that they did not include a price for an alternate. They didn't get their question in time to be responded by the architect. So we just asked them what the cost would be, and it was $1,450 to move the return air out of these vents and put a separate return air line in. So that's why we had to ask you to receive the new price for the contract. But I guess that's phase 1 of this floor. We'll do more phases as we go on, but that'll at least get the council chambers changed and the bathrooms changed. It'll be a little bit different configuration in here for the council chambers in order to accommodate the AV system.
Councilman Horner.
Real quick, Jeff, this is in relationship to the one resolution we did authorizing or changing our location. So about how long do you anticipate us at the library?
Well, they are in their proposal. If they get started on September 9th, they are saying 112 days. So that would put it at, I think, December 29th, somewhere in that range. So we're reserving the library for that first meeting in January,
So March.
probably. Likely, and we'll probably come back with some change orders because we don't know what's all in here yet.
Any other comments or questions from the council on this?
Thank you.
Anybody here to speak on this item? See, any additional comments from council? Councilman Dinkins?
Do we need to amend the resolution as it's written?
You can amend the contract to conform with what was handed out and the resolution to conform with the amended contract.
Councilman Dinkins, did you make that motion or?
I'm trying, yes.
Okay. All right, Councilman Jensen.
And I will second that motion.
Okay. Motion and as legal presented it to amend to have the price reflect the contract and the resolution. Okay. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
And I will make the motion to approve amended resolution 2024-202.
Councilman Vaughn,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
All right, next would be executive session to discuss real estate matters. Councilman Jensen,
I move to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
A motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? The pending motion is to go in executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your vote.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
A motion to go in executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest has been approved. Discussion will be limited to discussing real estate matters. No official actions or votes will be taken during the executive session. We'll now move back to the back conference room.
Oh, they're special. Yeah, and you don't have to run there either.
That's all right. Yeah.
All right. I'd take a motion to come out of executive session.
So move.
Okay, Councilman Horner,
You already made, I second.
cast your votes to come out of executive session. Motion to adjourn, Councilman Jensen,
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman Horner,
Second.
cast your votes. We are adjourned.